Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be talking about further updates on what's going on with the Israeli-Hamas war. And I have three videos here, so let's play them. I was going to play the CNN video with the Russian riot with the airport, the last video, but I didn't. So let's do that one first.
Been to Dagestan. We are also seeing these multiple videos of very angry crowds over there storming an airport in Dagestan, in the Russian Republic, after the arrival of a flight from Tel Aviv. Tell us a little bit more about that. And as I said, I know you've been there.
Yeah, it's deeply worrying for anyone from Israel, or for that matter, for the Jewish community around the world, because this is just, it appears to be yet another place where anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish sentiment is being expressed. What surprises me specifically about this incident today is how in a Russian republic that has a high security presence. So the last time I was in Makhachkala airport in Dagestan, which is where this happened, was following the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. And that was because the bombers' families had come from there. And there was, we discovered, an undercurrent of radical Islamist behavior amongst a small element of the population, and a high Russian security presence in that area. So in an area where there is a high and strong Russian security prevalence, how could the airport itself today be stormed? It comes at a time today, shortly after Israel's foreign ministry here called in the Russian ambassador to ask him why Russia has not unequivocally condemned Hamas's brutal attack on the 7th of October. And to that point as well, foreign ministry officials in Moscow just a couple of days ago meeting with senior Hamas officials. So this sort of apparent security lapse in Makhachkala.
I'll tell you what's going on there, in my opinion, my humble opinion, which is not so humble at times. Russia has been backing, or has been supporters of Syria and Lebanon, all right? But they were also a modulator, meaning that during the war between Lebanon and Israel, I think it was back in 2006, the Russians were somewhat slowing down the Lebanese and the Syrians' involvement and allowed Israel to do some targeted bombing. All right. Now that war didn't go too well with it for Israel. But Russia was somewhat of a modulator. Well, fast forward to what has happened in Ukraine. Israel was more aligned with Russia than the Ukrainians. But because Israel needs the weapons from the United States, they move more onto the side of the United States supporting Ukraine. So this is payback by the Russians not condemning what happened in Israel recently with the attacks by Hamas. So here again is another point where the conflict in Ukraine is affecting the geopolitics that's going on in the Middle East. Now, like I said in the previous video, these people that are, quote, rioting and protesting in that airport, they're extremists. And they're extremists, right? Not just with the Israelis, but they're going to be extremists with the Christians. This is going, trust me on this, they're going after the Christians too. Just not yet. Just not yet. And all these ultra liberals don't realize that they're useful idiots for the Islamic terrorism that's going to take hold around the world. Useful idiots.
Airport in Dagestan, allowing this flight from Tel Aviv arriving to be stormed by crowds. The timing raises questions. We don't have the answers. And of course, most of all, just deeply worrying and disturbing for Israelis.
Very disturbing. And it's interesting because of my conversation with Israelis here in Tel Aviv over the past hour or two since we got word of this angry mob attacking this Israeli plane that landed in Dagestan. Israelis are complaining that it's not just anti-Israel statements that were being hurled at the Israelis who were on this plane, but it was anti-Semitic statements as well. And they're concerned about leaving the country right now and going to various places where there is not only increased anti-Israeli feeling, but anti-Semitic feelings as well. And I assume you've been hearing stuff along those lines where you are here in Israel.
Absolutely, Wolf. People are very concerned. They're concerned not just about their security here, but also worried about the reaction around the world that has not come out so strongly and condemned the actions of Hamas on the 7th of October and the implications of what that means. Not just anti-Jewish, anti the state of Israel, but anti-Semitic. And
remember when I did the predictions during the last crisis and how most of them came true? This is going to be a biblical event and the protesting is going to be eating itself, meaning the snake is going to start eating its tail. And they are going to reach out and start protesting the Christians. So if the Western world doesn't band together, right, and move more towards conservatism, move more towards the precepts of the Bible and the Torah, then there's going to be continued destruction within the Western society. And these ultra liberals don't understand what they're doing, right? They, and I'll tell you, the ones that are protesting in Russia right now are not your friend, ultra liberal, because the ultra liberal does not follow the precepts of even what is prescribed in the Quran. Do you really think that these Islamic jihadists, these Islamic extremists are going to be kind to your blue hair and your gender fluidity and your destruction of the family unit? See, the ultra liberals don't understand that they are literally digging their own grave by siding with the extremists. I am not wrong on this. And this hatred on Jews and Israel is coming to the Christians. They are going to target Christians too. Mark my words, it's coming. It's coming.
And it's deeply troubling, deeply worrying for the Jewish communities all across the world. We can look at capitals in Europe where attacks on the Jewish community have gone up, and the community is forced to take steps to protect their own security at levels that would be unfathomable for the rest of the community. So absolutely, and it is very, very deeply felt, and it's something people here do talk about, Wolf.
It certainly is very disturbing indeed. And Nick Robertson is stay safe over there, as I tell you every day. We'll get back to you soon. Jim, you're picking up our coverage.
Thanks, Wolf. Tonight, another U.S. military ship heading towards the coast of Israel. Pentagon officials tell CNN they're repositioning a Marine Rapid Response Force in the Mediterranean to be closer to the conflict. The move comes amid fears that the Israel Israel-Hamas war could widen to include other countries. CNN's Oren Lieberman is reporting from the Pentagon for us. Oren, what are you learning?
Jim, we've been watching very closely the USS Bataan and the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, a Marine Rapid Response Force that has a number of mission-essential tasks, including special operations and, crucially, a non-combatant evacuation, known in military lingo as a NEO. Over the course of the past several weeks, it's been in the Middle East. It was initially making its way toward Israel, but it was supposed to be off the southern coast in the Red Sea. According to 2 U.S. officials, that plan has now changed. It is still in the Red Sea, but now on its way north. It will go through the Suez Canal and into the Eastern Med, putting it very close to Israel and Jordan. This, as there is already a carrier strike group there, the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group, and then the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was initially heading for the Eastern Med, will be there for a bit, but will then make its way down into the waters of the Middle East. In fact, that is where the USS Bataan and the Marine Rapid.
We may be starting to do the war plan for land invasion, U.S. troops in northern border between Lebanon and Israel, and potentially even going into Syria, and airstrikes possibly on Iran. This is not, again, I repeat myself, this is not the normal cycle of violence that de-escalates through diplomacy that we have seen in the last 30 or 40 years. This is much bigger, and this is going to be a regional war, and this is going to get deadly, and potentially go into unconventional means, which also may mean biologics. Now, I'm against biological warfare in general. The same thing, I'm against radiological warfare in general. But there are certain times, and we're not there yet, but if there is a complete existential threat of the country, and that if they don't do something that is of unconventional means, then their country may be destroyed. So we may be tiptoeing into something that we're moving towards biologics. I still think it's low probability, but again, biologics were designed for this urban type environment. But if you're going to do this, that means you're also setting the path of destruction of the civilians of that country you're attacking. In this case, the Lebanese, the Syrians, and the Palestinians. I don't think that biologics are going to be used yet, but we're moving towards an elevated risk factors that will lead to unconventional means. And those three large unconventional means are chemical, biological, and radiological.
Rapid Response Force are coming from. Now, why is this significant, other than it is an overwhelming show of force and a message meant to deter Iran and Iranian proxies from getting involved in this? Well, John Kirby, the Strategic Communications Coordinator for the National Security Council, early last week on Tuesday said it would be irresponsible and imprudent if the U.S. didn't plan for contingencies. Among those are possible evacuation of Israel and Lebanon if the situation deteriorates. And that's obviously a crucial if. We have seen some back and forth across the Israel-Lebanon border, but not a massive escalation there. But there is still a very real concern about that. Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, said the risk is real when asked about a regional conflict. The U.S. is trying to separate the conflict in Gaza from other parts of the Middle East, but it has been unable to do that, certainly in the eyes of Iran and Iranian proxies, crucially Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Like I said, there is a extreme high level of intelligence that is running this. All right. And diplomacy at the human level is not going to be allowed. And the more that you try to create diplomacy, the more carnage there will be with the Western allies. The absolute destruction of the terrorists, and especially of Iran, is the only thing that will guarantee the development, the pathway forward towards the rebuilding of the temple. And this rebuilding is going to help the world at large. And this is a true test of the Jewish faith and the Christian faith on re-establishing a center of spirituality in Jerusalem.
In Lebanon. So the Marine Rapid Response Force with the USS Bataan making its way to the Eastern Med would give the U.S. an option, a crucial asset and capability, if it gets to the point where the U.S. needs to seriously consider a NEO, a non-combatant evacuation. Now, it's important to note that that order hasn't been given, but late last week, the State Department, the embassy in Beirut, said it is advisable for U.S. citizens in Beirut to leave now, to leave before the crisis begins. So the U.S. very clearly looking at the possibility that the conflict in Gaza escalates into a wider regional conflict with a particular focus on Israel's border with Lebanon, the possibility that a second front opens up and that Israel and Hezbollah are in open war. In that case, the capability, one of the crucial capabilities, if the U.S. decides it needs to order a NEO, a non-combatant evacuation order, would be that Marine Rapid Response Force, the USS Bataan, along with the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, the MEU, making its way to the Eastern Med.
All right, Orrin Lieberman, that's Pentagon. Thank you very much. Let's discuss further with retired Lieutenant General Mark Kirtland, the former manager.
I did a show with John last night, John Hogue, and I made a comment that I thought that, you know, I kind of, one thought in my mind is the United States is going to go in and start depleting its munitions, and we're already low on our munitions, and we're too stretched. We're stretched too thin in terms of all the weapons that we're providing Ukraine and Israel, and making sure that we have a stockpile, you know, for other contingencies like Asia. So we're running low, and we're already starting to rearm Israel. We're dragging our feet with rearming Ukraine, and we may be seeing the sunsetting of the Ukrainian war soon here. But we may go in and start lobbing a lot of missiles and rockets, right, and do a lot of destruction in Lebanon and in Syria, maybe a little bit in Iran. And then that will take us into the beginning of next year, right? So we start, you know, some offensive posturing after this NEO that takes place, this evacuation. You know, we start doing this year, and it spills over into the beginning of next year. And then what I said to John, I was saying, well, because we've depleted our armaments, we'll make it seem as though we are trying to do a peace negotiation, but it's not because we really want the peace. It's because we're truly depleted in our munitions, and that we need time to rearm. You know, so that was my thought when I did the recording with John last night. Now, it's possible that this escalates to the point where see, my thought with John last night was is that Biden, or at least the Democratic Party, has to go into the general election, which would be in 2024 in November. The general election with stabilization in the Middle East. Now, again, this thing in Gaza is going to take months. It might even take years. But the major offensive is probably will take months. So we're already at the end of October, and it's just starting. So you're talking November, December, January, March, April. So maybe around April, where it starts to cool down. And around that time period, when it's starting to cool down, it's going to be perceived in the news to carry the Democratic Party into the general election with some sort of peace agreement or peace ceasefire kind of situation. And that makes them look like they have the high ground. The question is how much capability does Iran have, Hezbollah and Hamas, to be able to sustain this past April? So that was my thought process last night. And that might be what is happening here. But I also feel as though that there's this opportunistic moment for China to go into Taiwan. John thinks that the Chinese are weakened, and they're not going to go into Taiwan. I disagree with that. I've always thought that in a post-crisis era that we just went through, again, I'm being generic to keep this video up, that it was that one of the negative externalities of that post era was going to be attack in Taiwan. I've said that all the way back in 2020. That 2024 and 2025 are real danger points for hegemonic power, the loss of hegemonic power in the Pacific for the United States because of the advancement of China into Taiwan. And that the United States, I don't think we have the capability to do a three-front war. Nor do I think that we have the stamina in Congress or in the public within its citizens to wage war on a three-front front. I mean, they're whining and crying about what's going on in Gaza. Can you imagine what it would be in a three-front war? So, there's a timetable here. And the Democratic Party wants to go into the general election with some sort of peace agreement. And it might happen, right? But this, like I said, that's using military strategy and tactics and international diplomacy. But this event is beyond that. This is, again, I say that this is biblical, and there are divine presence with this. There are divine things happening. And if the United States thinks that they can do something so they look good in elections, then there's going to be a curse that happens. And the plan will be foiled. Because it's not about truly making true peace, getting the job done, as I say. It's doing what, there's a term out there now called half war. So they're pushing this half war concept. And this half war concept plays right into the general election for the United States in 2024 in November. It's to, to show that, well, the Democratic Party, was able to de-escalate this. So vote us in again. And there's a lot of problems, with the Democratic Party at the domestic level. But that's the game plan that seems to be playing out. But God is going to, a divine thing is going to happen where it's going to force the hand of the United States to be more involved. So half war is going to lead to further escalation, not diminished escalation. This is why the United States needs to go all in, and knock out, destroy Iran. And, all those medals on those generals, even this clown, all right, are all for naught if they can't get the job done. Because in the contemporary time period, what war, especially during my lifetime, what war have they won? None. No war. This general has never won a war. Not one. The United States has not won a war in more than 50 years. But we spend an awful lot of money. So if we can't get the job done, then why the hell are we spending all this money? And why do these generals have so many medals for participation, for losing? My brother, served in the Army. My father did too, and many of my other relatives have. And my brother said that if you lose a pair of night vision goggles or your rifle, there's more of a more of a punishment on a reprimand punishment on the troop that lost the night vision goggles or the rifle than it is for a general to actually lose a war. Now think about that. Back, during World War II, all right, and maybe even Korean War. I don't know much about the Korean War, but if a general was losing, they would get fired. If the general wasn't getting the job done, they would lose their position. But instead, what we do is we clap, give them a medal, say how great they are. And we need to actually hold the generals that fail accountable instead of punishing troops that misplace their goggles in a war, or their night vision goggles or their weapon in a war, right, in a war setting. It's flipped upside down. Don't trust. I mean, I don't know what he's going to say, and tactics and stuff. I may agree because I haven't seen this video, so we're doing it on the fly here. But most of these generals, they get participation medals. They haven't won a war. They do the circuit on CNN as an analyst, or if they're really lucky, they get onto boards like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, and perpetuate this military-industrial complex or biological-industrial complex, military-industrial complex. Because we're moving into biological warfare here, or the potentiality of it. So, keep that in mind. These generals don't win wars anymore. They just talk about it. And it's time. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road and get the job done. And if we do this half war idea, you'll start seeing in the news this concept called half war. All right. And if we embrace half war, we're going to be embracing defeat. The Western society is going to embrace defeat, and Islamic terrorism is going to metastasize. So it's important to just keep that in mind, that the United States is weakened because we have ultra liberals gutting the military, we have recruits that are a bunch of retards that are either intellectually incompetent or physically incompetent. And, you know, we have this pronoun problem now everywhere in society.
Commanding General for Europe and the 7th Army. General Hertling, what do you make of what Orrin Lieberman was just talking about, this rapid response force getting closer to this situation? I mean, obviously, it could happen. I mean, where they may need to intervene and evacuate Americans. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly, Jim. And what I tell you is, as commander of U.S. Army Europe back in 2013, we worked with the Marine Expeditionary Units in the area at the time. It was a different view of
2013. What war did you win in 2013, dude? Really? What war? I'd like to know. And how much did my taxpayer dollars pay for all that training and all that weapons and all that?
but this one, the 26th MEU Marine Expeditionary Unit, special operations capable. It is not a special operations unit, but it can work with special operations forces, are trained to conduct NEO operations. And in fact, back in my day, about 10 years ago, we actually planned a NEO operation in Beirut out of Lebanon. It didn't happen, but certainly it could today, given the increase of tensions in the area.
I'm not downplaying the importance of these MEUs, as they call them. But think about it. The last, I don't know, 12 years, maybe even 20 years, but let's just say 12 years. It's been push of special forces, special forces, special forces, right? But the thing is, you can't win a war with special forces. You can start a war with special forces. You can grind a war with special forces, but you can't win a war with special forces, right? And I think that the United States military has moved too much towards the special forces because it sounds cool. You know, SEAL Team 6, SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 3, right? That now we're applauding MEUs. Yeah, oh great. It's about saving people now. I thought war was about killing people, about winning, destroying the enemy. No, what now? See, it's how this ultra liberalism kind of even seeps into the military. Oh, we now have to, how many people can we save now? How many people can we, make sure that we evacuate? What about worrying about killing the fucking enemy, General? I'll tell you, I just like the people that are running our country are a bunch of fucking retards.
Area. What I'd suggest is that rapid response force, that Marine MEU, is capable of doing all sorts of things. Contributing to the execution of a NEO is one of the most important things they do. But what I'd say, Jim, is when I was there, and this was a long time ago, there were 100,000 and more American citizens inside of Lebanon. And we were planning for the non-combatant evacuation of all of them at the time. Luckily, we didn't have to do that. This is a very tough mission. The MEU will contribute to that. It has about 2,200 Marines on board the Baton, that amphibious ship that would contribute to this. So yeah, this is an important factor of having a contingency operation ready to perform operations in Beirut and in Lebanon.
Right, better to have it there and not need it than to need it and not have it there. And we're also getting, I want to ask you about this, gentlemen. We're also getting chaotic, this really kind of crazy new video that's come in from Dagestan, the Russian Republic of Dagestan. I'm sure you've seen this video. Russian officials say a crowd protesting the Israel-Hamas war forced their way into the airport after a flight from Israel landed, and just all hell breaks loose. What do you think about what's going on here? This has got to be very worrisome.
It is worrisome, Jim, but you have to set the understanding of the context. Dagestan is a Soviet or a Russian republic and about 80% of the population there are Islamic. Their background is in Islam, so they are very concerned about Jews coming into the area. The reaction is unbelievably anti-Semitic, but you can understand this, and I'd point to the fact that Russia and Iran have been coordinating many of their actions. So when you see a republic within the Russian sphere, Dagestan, it's connected to Georgia and Azerbaijan in the area, with about 80% of their population being Muslims, and would not support any Jewish immigrants to the area. So you're going to see this kind of actions in those kind of areas and in other areas. But it's extremely troubling as we see Jews trying to get out of Israel, trying to escape kind of the consequences of what's happening from Hamas. But you also have to understand that the members or the population of Dagestan is very supportive of the Iranian Revolution and the fact that they are supporting what's going on by Hamas and Hezbollah inside.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products.
I hate these ads. All right, so that was the end of the video, actually. So, Dagestan. What is going there? What's going on there is only one step. We're only one step away, literally one step away, of seeing these more militant protests in the United States going kinetic, going more like that. All right. It's still relatively peaceful with the protests, but it doesn't take much to move that type of hatred in that crowd towards Jews and Christians. It's going to get worse, especially when the collateral damage in Gaza increases. It will increase. It will increase. And also the body count of the soldiers on the Israeli side is going to increase, and it's going to get charged, right? And then the United States are going to start losing planes in the air. And the United States are going to start taking casualties, either at civilian, U.S. citizens in the area that are non-combatant, dying from it, and also the combatant ones. So and there's some talk that we had special forces in that first wave that went in, helping the Israelis, and we took one casualty. Now I don't know, what that is, if it's a kill or if it's a wounded, but that's the rumor, right? The Israelis weren't the only ones that went in. It was some of our special forces, which I think we have too many of them. We spend too much money and prop that up, while wars are won through a mechanized way, and not through these special forces. So that's my take on it. Now so what's happening in Russia with that protest or riot is not that far away here in the United States, and not that far away from France, Germany, and the UK. You have a contingency within these countries that are have deep Islamic extremism, to the point where they're going to go after Jews and Christians. Jews are the first ones, but they're going after Christians too. Trust me on this. Muslims don't like Christians. Okay, now this one is breaking news about an Israeli soldier freed from Hamas captivity. Now this is on Fox. Now this was a little bit more than an hour ago as of this recording.
It's really hard. It's like the 7th of October. It's still going on for us. It has been 24 days, but it's one long day for us all.
Breaking moments ago, as Harris just mentioned, an Israeli soldier has now been released from Hamas captivity after she was kidnapped in the initial raid of October the 7th. According to the IDF, she was released during a ground operation and appears to be in good condition. Israeli media is saying this photo was taken with her family after her joyous release.
A big development. Meanwhile, we are awaiting a pair of briefings here at home and overseas. The State Department expected to provide an update any moment now. And in Tel Aviv, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will update reporters as Israel.
And I think I haven't brought this up, but in the United States, there are these pictures of the captives, right? And they post them around. You know, in New York, there's some people that are posting them on poles, and there are Muslims or ones from Palestine or ones that are sympathetic to Palestine that are tearing them down. I also, if I remember, I also saw a video of it happening in another city in the United States. Maybe it was Chicago, or maybe it was Philly or Washington, D.C., somewhere like that. And, you know, people are getting angry. There's two types that are getting angry. The ones that see the poster because they're pro-Palestinian, they don't want to see the hostages that Hamas took of the Israelis, and, you know, the other citizens of the world, right? Like the French and the United States citizens and the Germans and even the UK, you know, but there are these posters of the face of these individuals, you know, saying that they're hostage. This reminds me of 9/11. If you know, go back to 9/11, and some people that are listening to this may actually have been born after 9/11 or so young they don't even remember 9/11. But the ones that are my age, you know, go back to 9/11. All right, September 11, 2001, and remember on the gate. Well, you know,
Israel forces move deeper into Gaza at this hour. It's all developing. Welcome and hello, everybody. I'm Sandra Smith.
And I'm John Roberts in Washington. Sandra, it is good to be with you. This is America Reports.
Pentagon officials telling Fox that U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq have been attacked 23 times since just 13 days through a mix of attack drones and rockets. And they say the strikes have Iran's fingerprints on them.
And now Iran is responding. According to the Times of Israel, Iran says the strikes against U.S. forces are due to America's support for Israel, contradicting what President Biden said last week. And Iran is urging Washington to change its, quote, wrong policy.
So how
see, you support Israel, and the other nations that are supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad are going to go after you, you Western nations. This is the metastasis that I'm talking about, all right? But to get back to the point I was making about the posters. So, you know, during 9/11, we had the victims of 9/11 in the posters in New York. So there's a reminiscence of it. There's an echo. There's an echo of 9/11 and the lost lives and the lost lives and the hostages of this crisis, right? And you have Palestinians or Palestinian sympathizers in the United States tearing down these pictures, right? So there was this one guy, I think he was from the Bronx, right? He may have been from Brooklyn. And he's yelling at this Palestinian sympathizer that's tearing down the pictures, right, of the hostages. And he's telling him, why are you tearing it down? Why are you tearing it down and littering the place? And the point that I'm making is that these sympathizers, these Palestinian sympathizers, do not want to recognize the atrocities that Hamas did in not only killing civilians in cold blood, right? But they took hostages, right? And they took hostages because they wanted to slow down the military operations that the Israelis were going to do and to try to negotiate a peace settlement or negotiate some sort of ceasefire, only to rearm and to be able to lob more rockets, right? So there's a hint of the past. These things, remember what I was saying about the Fibonacci sequence, and it spirals. But when it spirals, it's a circular, but it's not exactly like the previous spiral, and it gets a little bit bigger. And it gets a little bit bigger, so it's a rhyme. There's a harmonic that rhymes, but it's not exact, right? So the pictures of the victims of 9/11, even though it was an inside job and all that, there was a terrorist hit that was allowed to happen. And there were just under 3,000 people that died, right? And, especially that first day where they were hoping that they would find survivors, they posted missing people. This fib sequence it's similar. It has a similarity to it. We didn't root out Islamic terror with the 20-year plus war that we had in the Middle East, because we didn't want to do it. We wanted to be able to have enough control, enough chaotic control. We kicked the can down the road, weren't willing to go all out. And now we have a hint of that with what has transpired with the killings that took place in the Hamas invasion and the hostages and the posting of these pictures of the hostages over, whatever the number is, 239 is the new number. But, over 200 people of various nations. There's a hint of it. And the question is like, when are we as a society going to absolutely destroy Ishmael and Esau and those negative attributes? So this terror never rises up again. But we don't have strong people willing to do that. And so we're going to see more rhymes to 9/11, more rhymes to, October 7th, more rhymes, just another spiral because we weren't willing to get the job done when we needed to. We got to go all out and destroy it. Absolutely, completely destroy it.
Well, how should the U.S. respond? We'll ask Wisconsin Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher, who sits on the House Armed Services Committee. Plus, Fox team coverage from around the globe over the next 2 hours on the breaking news from the war in the Middle East.
We are going to start with Trey Inks. He is live in southern Israel. What more can you tell us, Trey, about the release of this Israeli soldier that happened in just the last couple of hours?
Yeah, John, good afternoon. The soldier's name is Private Ori Magadish, and she was originally taken on October 7th. During the massacre, she was at the Nahalos base, a base that sits just along the Gaza border, when she was kidnapped and was held hostage for the past 3 weeks inside the Gaza Strip. In the distance there, you can hear some of that outgoing artillery. As we speak, Israeli forces are operating inside Gaza. Magadish was rescued last night, according to the Israeli military, during their ground operation. The IDF says the soldier was medically examined and is in good condition. You saw that photo there with her family, a joyous moment for them. They have their daughter back home. I do want to show you what it's like inside Gaza as our cameras were rolling Israeli tanks moving throughout the strip. Take a look. You can see here the Israelis marking targets on the northeastern side of the Gaza Strip. In the distance, you can hear the thud of artillery. This is a very active front. And as the Israelis push deeper into Gaza, they anticipate there will be more resistance, and it's part of the reason they continue strikes against different positions. Right now, the Israelis are operating on the western and eastern side of Gaza. The Israeli military says they are pushing deeper into the strip, trying to put new pressure on Hamas, not only to destroy the organization, but also to look for those hostages that are still inside. Still 238 people after the one piece of good news tonight. Daniel Hagari, a spokesman for the Israeli military, talking earlier today about that situation inside.
Over the past day, we have expanded ground activities with additional forces entering the Gaza Strip, including infantry, armored corps, combat engineering, and artillery corps. Through integrated strikes with the ground forces and the IAF, dozens of terrorists were eliminated last night who had barricaded themselves in buildings and attempted to attack the forces that were moving in their direction. I want to explain and provide an example. We are conducting expanded ground operations in the Gaza Strip.
There is significant damage to civilian areas.
There's going to be a lot of collateral damage for the Gazans, but Hamas has been digging trenches, digging tunnels for 15 years. Why didn't you do anything about it? Why did you let your Palestinian government be so corrupt to take American funds and also Iranian funds and skim it? You know, these people are multimillionaires. You know, impoverished environment. How did that happen? Did they do really well in the stock market? Did they have a CEO job? You know, where they had great stock options? Or were they skimming from the American public as we were actually funding the Palestinians? War is hell. Or hell on earth. And that this terrorism is so embedded, not just in Gaza, but in our society too. All right? It's right at the surface. It doesn't take much to have just start to see it. And there are probably sleeper cells that are more coordinated that are in Western countries that are ready to go. All right. There are probably a lot of lone wolves and just a lot of individuals that just hate Christians and Jews that are going to boil up to the surface. And there are these useful idiots called the ultra liberal that is helping to propagate this hate. And they don't even realize it. These ultra liberals are so stupid that they don't even realize that they are useful idiots to this whole thing. There's a reason why I say useful idiot if people understand economics and history.
Civilian areas inside Gaza, people are still digging through the rubble following expanded Israeli strikes, hundreds of them over the past 24 hours. Palestinians desperate for aid over the weekend, storming a UN food warehouse in Gaza and taking everything that was inside. Right now, you'll see we're in a very dark position. We are waiting with the Israeli military near the Gaza border. We understand we're going to get some access to these artillery units that you heard there before that sound that are firing currently into Gaza. John?
All right, we look forward to your reporting throughout the afternoon. Trey Inks for us.
Okay, so now that was the CNN report. Now this one is MSNBC dealing with the next phase of the war getting more intense.
NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel with the very latest. Richard?
Well, all week.
That was Mika, Joe Morning or whatever it is. And she's the daughter of Brzezinski. And Brzezinski, even though, you know, I read some of his books and, you know, understood some of his thinking in trying to de-escalate the Cold War and move the chess pieces around. He worked under Carter for his national advisor. He was kind of like a Kissinger, right? And Brzezinski was the one that kind of like helped with the strategy with the Afghan war. And help fund the terrorists, help fund this Islamic, you know, jihad against Russia. You know, here again, you have the State Department, you have the Defense Department, you have the CIA, you have individuals within high, powerful positions in the United States creating havoc in the Middle East that causes more problems, right? So the Taliban, we created, right, to fight the Russians. Yet we had to knock out the Taliban. We didn't even get that done right, you know? So Brzezinski was part of the problem. Brzezinski's failed policies were part of the problem. They tried to solve the Russian issue, this Cold War issue, the Soviet issue, I should say. But it created another problem in the Middle East. So it was oil interests, right? And Cold War interests that ends up boiling up on top of a very, very poisonous situation because of biblical context, right? That puts us in this position that we're in today. So Mika, who was introducing this guy, is the daughter of Brzezinski. The irony cannot be missed on this.
All weekend and all morning, we've been watching this offensive escalate. We've been seeing Israeli tanks and troops going into Gaza. They're going in with bulldozers, breaking through the Israeli side of the fence, crossing into a no man's land, and then going into the built-up areas. So we are entering a phase that if street fighting hasn't begun, it will begin very soon. And already Palestinian militant groups saying they are fighting back. So we're starting to see the intense phase of the Gaza war. And it is a phase that Israel says is open-ended.
The Israeli military is driving deeper into Gaza this morning in a war the government promises will be long
and difficult. From just outside Gaza, our cameras can see columns of tanks moving in and armored bulldozers to make paths for urban fighting. Parts of northern Gaza are being razed to the ground. At night, Israel is using bombs so powerful that they shake buildings for miles around. Deep penetrating strikes to collapse Hamas.
So, you know, those bunker busters that they're using, and I don't know if there are multiple, you know, different grades of it. I'm sure that the ones that are watching that are in the military during the development of this, that these bombs, there's probably different these ordnance probably have different explosive power, right? But you know, you're talking about, you know, a lot of these are 30 feet deep, and some of them are even more. So you're going to have to be hitting these things pretty hard, right? My understanding with these bunker busters is that they're dropped from planes. I don't think that they're shot from ships or, you know, or surface to surface missile systems. My understanding is that they're actually bomb guided from airplanes, you know, bombers. I don't know what type of bomber they're using for it, but I could be wrong with that. But my understanding is that that's from the Air Force.
Hamas tunnels. In the daylight, we can see what we normally can only hear: Israeli drones. In Gaza, the internet and power have been partially restored, so our crew can show us life inside. Gaza City is being devastated. And the humming you hear are those drones. Palestinians call them mosquitoes. Israeli officials have described this operation as payback after Hamas butchered more than 1,400 Israelis and took, by the latest count, 200.
This is that fib sequence that I was telling you about. You know, these pictures here. It's on a wall, very similar to 9/11 of the missing. And it adds to the human dimension to it. Now, obviously, it's from the Israeli side, and there's a human dimension to the Gazan side because of all the casualties. But I'll tell you, there is something deep and metaphysical about Esau and Ishmael, and that they're wild beasts, and this is an area of the world that knows nothing but force. And you have to be unapologetic. You have to be unapologetic, and you have to get the job done, and you have to kill and root out the problem. And future generations will benefit from it. The current generation will be scarred, but there will be peace and harmony for future generations. And this is the problem that people, especially in the current generations that are living today, have a problem with. And it probably started with the baby boom generation. And that is lack of self-sacrifice for country and lack of self-sacrifice for humanity. And there's too much of meism, too much of egocentric aspects to their personality. And we are a generation that's going to have to get the job done and be scarred from it. For future generations that have not been born yet to be able to benefit from a long-lasting peace for all people on this earth, including the Muslims, right? We got to get the job done. And Westphalian geopolitics, trying to, you know, have some sort of conditional ceasefire or some sort of, you know, stoppage of hostilities without fully rooting out the problem around the world is only going to kick the can down the road. You know, very few people today would actually be strong enough to have been there during D-Day. All right, because we are a weak society now, and there is a lack of commitment to country, a lack of commitment to their belief system, and a lack of commitment to the family. And this is due to ultra liberalism, blue hair, gender fluidity, killing babies in the womb. This is where society goes when you have that kind of mentality. So, you know, here, you know, there's these individuals that were killed or captured, right, or missing. They just don't know. So reminiscent of, you know, the missing bodies, and some of them were never recovered for 9/11. And once in a while, you'll hear, you know, that they were able to identify pieces of something, you know, from the 9/11 attack. You know, this is an emotional situation, and obviously you see it. You see the emotional side of this for me. You know, there's the Jewish side that sees this and you know, wants peace in the Middle East, but there's also this strong conviction. This is, you know, we need more people like myself. Strong conviction on country to strong conviction on your religious foundation, and, you know, trying to do the right thing, but also realize that there is evil in this world that needs to be eliminated, and you can't be apologetic, and you got to move and root that out and make the world a better place and do the best you can. You may get it wrong sometimes, you may get it right, but you do the best you can. But there is evil out there that needs to be checked. There's evil out there that needs to be eliminated. And you know, living in New York and seeing the Renaissance and the rebuilding of Ground Zero, and being in the middle of that, living in Lower Manhattan, you know, I sense it. You know, I was not in New York when 9/11 happened, but, you know, that was the gravitational pull for me to move to New York. And, you know, I literally saw the rising of the Phoenix as they were, you know, building the Freedom Tower and all the towers around it. And meeting the master architect. I met Daniel Lipskin twice, and even have an autographed book of his. So, you know, I saw the rebuilding of that area and have been privileged to be able to enjoy the peacefulness at night and early in the morning of the fountains, you know, at Ground Zero. And, you know, and seeing the rebuilding of that environment from just a pile of rubble all the way to what it is today. And it took many years. And I remember seeing the first time one of the cornerstones of the cornerstone for the Freedom Tower was way below ground. It took many years just to do the underground construction before you actually saw the superstructure coming up above ground for the Freedom Tower. But the cornerstone below ground, you were able to see it when you were on the path, and the path coming in from New Jersey and coming in to the station at the World Trade Center, the temporary station that they had, and then eventually it became, you know, a more established station. You know, it moved in stages, but being able to see that, you know, going from the cornerstone all the way to the finishing of the Freedom Tower. I saw that, all right, living in New York. So there's a, even though I wasn't here for 9/11, I was literally in South Korea when 9/11 happened. But you know, it just, as a New Yorker, as an American, and as a Jew, you see the rhythm, you see this rhyming effect of the fib sequence, where you have the posters, right, of the missing or the dead or the captured. That's so much like the missing and the dead from 9/11. They were both terrorist acts. The irony is that, you know, there was probably a stand down on both of them, and both countries were complicit to some level of seeding terrorism. You know, dealing with these terrorists uh, in the early days. But we have to get the job done and show that these terrorists are not, it's not right for what they're doing, and that they need to be eliminated. Now, again, it's, you know, very strict and very biblical, and you know, I am a firm believer in the third temple being rebuilt and the messianic era and the peace for all nations, for all religions, and the rebooting of the sacrifices and all that. And you know, so it has a strict context, and I think that ultra liberalism has led us down a road of destruction. And there's this wake up call. There's a divine thing that's happening. There's this wake up call. Are you going to get your house in order? Are you going to get right with the way you should be in your life, spiritually, and how you interface with the people around you? Are you a better person, or are you a worse person? And in real time, you're seeing this happening, the splitting of peoples, and you can see that the individuals that are on this ultra liberal side and the Islamic Jihad side are becoming more and more and more hateful. And the ones that are for lack of a better term, I'm going to just call them conservatives. You know, even though some of these people may not be conservatives based on the normal definition of it, but ultra liberal and jihadist to the conservatives. All right, this conservative crowd, right, are going to say, you know what, you know, we're going to realize that Israel has done things that are bad, but we're also going to realize that the Palestinians have done things also bad. Hamas has done things that have been bad. The Palestinians should have rooted out Hamas themselves. Israel shouldn't have to do it. And the international community should have never been placating to Iran. So there's this amalgamation of issues where everyone's at fault, which is a hard concept to get because we always want good guy, bad guy in our mind, right? But there is this concept that everyone's at fault, but not everybody is of equal fault, and not everybody is going to get equal blessing either, because the curse that's happening on mankind, of all peoples, at the individual level and at the societal level, that curse, there's also a blessing wrapped up in it. And depending through our free will and how we are aligning ourselves in this splitting of the peoples will determine your future. If you're going to have peace or you're going to live in destruction, right? So, but the human side of this, you know, I'm sure that the Palestinians, you know, have lots of people that have died from the collateral damage of this, and you know, are putting posters up too, and it's especially young children. It's tough. You know, it's tough to digest. But the reality of the situation is that Esau and Ishmael, the attributes of them within these societies, has to be eliminated. And unfortunately, at times, the Jewish people weren't willing to do it during the biblical times when God told them to destroy certain people. And they weren't willing to do it. And they were cursed and they were punished for it. The wider world is going through something very, very similar. And if you actually read the parshas, the readings of the Torah and the certain chapters and verses that are read during certain weeks, ever since the start of October 7th to right now, to the recording, which is October 30th, all right, you can match the events to the parsha, right? And we're in the parsha now, where the last parsha, the one that just finished last Saturday, was dealing with Abraham and the famine that was taking place, you know, and the birth of Ishmael, and that set in motion eventually the birth of Isaac, you know, Isaac, and then Jacob and Esau. And those are the twins, and Esau is an animal. Ishmael is an animal. All right. They have attributes of animals. You see that in real time in the news. You know, so I just got to root them out. If you don't root them out, it's going to be a problem.
239 hostages. Last week, we watched 14-year-old Miral rescued from under her apartment, taken to a hospital, and treated on the floor. We found her again. She says 4 members of her family were killed in that strike, and they had moved south following Israeli orders when they were hit. They told us to go to the South Valley, she says. We went to my aunt's house in Han Yunis, where they bombed us while we were baking bread, and we were about to eat. The Israeli military has laid out 3 military goals: to disarm Hamas, remove it from power in Gaza, and free the hostages, a mission that could take years. But each new Palestinian death carries a risk of emboldening Israel's enemies, isolating its friends, and inflaming old hatreds. In the Russian province of Dagestan, a pro-Palestinian mob broke into the airport and...
Like I said, God is not happy with mankind, and that all of us are getting cursed and all of us are going to be blessed at a certain level, depending on how we sit and see these events take place. Are we going to repent and be better people? Are we not? Are we going to side on terrorism or not? Are we going to allow for the Temple Mount to be rebuilt or not? You know, and God does these things periodically and tests people, you know, because when you die, and you know, and the way the system supposedly works at the metaphysical level is that you'll complain, why didn't I have this, or why am I being punished for that? And then the great tribunal, or God himself, will just say, I tested you here, and this is what you did, and I gave you a chance here, and this is what you did. And so you've been given multiple chances. And when this happens, then, you know, there is some sort of divine retribution that's taking place. Mankind in general, there is a divine retribution that's taking place, you know? Do you think that pushing these anti-family agendas and this, you know, the abortion, pushing these late-term abortions and destroying the family unit, destroying God and country, that this was going to be a better world? No civilization that goes down this ultra-liberal path has ever survived. We have more technology than, let's say, the Greeks. You know, we have more technology than the Romans. But when societies become so sinful, they get destroyed.
And went hunting for an incoming flight to Tel Aviv, searching for Jews in the land of old pogroms.
So, Richard, this strategy, this onslaught, what is Israel's ultimate end game here? I don't see this adding up.
Israel's ultimate end game, what it should be, is absolute destruction of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, and Islamic Jihad. Give the Palestinians one more chance. And if terrorism starts to sprout again, green shoots of terrorism comes out of the West Bank and Gaza, they should be abolished from the land. The proper thing to do is abolish them now, because they will fail with that test. Because this is biblical. This is not, you cannot UN socially engineer a peace agreement on this, because the temple is getting rebuilt, and the Muslims don't want that.
Adding up to anything but war and more war and a wider war.
Meanwhile, her father was the major strategist in helping the funding of the Taliban during the Cold War, and also the strategist, failed strategist of the hostage crisis in Iran during Carter's administration. So, you know, it's amazing. She's on MSNBC telling that there's not going to be anything but war and more war. The only way to end this is to do the job, to get the job done, not to kick the can down the road and to try to socially engineer this and fund, you know, certain types of terrorist groups like her father did. It's so ironic. I mean, just like this woman came from a national security strategy that has led us to this point.
Well, you don't hear many voices like that in Israel right now, because this country is still.
But don't forget that she was, you know, blowjobbing Joe on the show.
Still angry. It's still
making daddy proud.
But there are some with, I would say, cooler heads. You're starting to hear their voices emerge inside and outside of Israel, who are looking at history, who say that this country and the Middle East have been through many wars for decades, and yet the fundamental problems remain. The fundamental problems of Palestinians, what to do about Palestinian rights, what to do with the 2 million Palestinians who live inside Gaza, which is effectively
destroy Hamas, use the oil and gas that's over on the seaboard, have them rebuild their society, have proper governance, be part of the international community, and be a vibrant society instead of a shithole. But if you green shoot more terrorists, then they should be expelled from the land. That's including the West Bank, and that's including the Gaza Strip. And, you know, just push them out. That's the answer. No matter how cold and no matter how detrimental it may be to the generations that are expelled. Because they've been given a chance. Give them a chance one more time to get their shit together. But they won't, because of Esau and Ishmael. Esau and Ishmael are animals. They will always be animals.
A large prison and who are now under attack. Will bombing them make them any more moderate, or will it just produce even more radical groups? And so there are real questions about if this military operation will achieve that goal of driving Hamas for power, or will it just enter a new cycle of violence that is largely domestic. It helps Netanyahu show deterrence, save his own political career, and that there could have been, or that there could be alternative ways to go.
I think Netanyahu's political career is over, no matter what happens. If the Israelis win this war, or if they lose the war, it doesn't matter. Netanyahu's time is ticking, and his political career is in a sunset. But the Israelis need to get the job done. The United States needs to get the job done, and that includes destroying Iran.
To go after Hamas leaders, take their time, use special forces. Very difficult questions, but as this goes on and as the risks escalate.
Again, special forces. See, part of the reason why we have these never-ending wars is because we think that we can do these surgical, tactical moves with, SEAL Team 6 and special forces and super troopers. Everybody's a Rambo. They don't win wars. You win wars by destruction. You win wars by destroying the society. You win wars by cutting off their supplies. You win wars by killing. Now, tactical moves. SEAL Team 6. Did SEAL Team 6 win in Iraq? Did SEAL Team 6 get the job done in Afghanistan? No. We put way too much effort and emphasis on special forces. Mechanized warfare, total destruction is the way to go. It's the cheapest and it's the quickest.
Escalate, you are starting to hear people questioning the wisdom of a mass ground operation and getting deeper and deeper into what could be a very, very long campaign.
Level it.
The most difficult places in the world to fight.
Richard, it's Jonathan. The front page of the New York Times today has a very thorough and damning look at the intelligence failures that allowed October 7th to happen. The headline, Hubris and Missed Signals as Hamas are ready to attack. Give us a sense, if you will, as to what the status is there in Israel about looking backwards, trying to piece together how things could have gone so wrong on October 7th. Is that all sort of been put on pause as the assault picks up? Is that something that's going to be revisited? Could it endanger Netanyahu?
War is politics by other means, and it has not been put on hold. It was put on hold in the first few days when people were in shock and horror and trying to figure out where their loved ones are. But now that shock is turning into anger, and a lot of that anger is being directed at the Prime Minister. Netanyahu, who is still refusing to accept any failures. The official line that he's put out is, yes, we will all answer those difficult questions when the war is over. But this is an open-ended campaign. And when the Prime Minister made the announcement to say that this was happening, that the Israelis were going in, as soon as he announced the start of phase 2, he was savaged by Israeli press. He has not been taking very many questions. And all the questions were not directed so much about the tanks and the troop movements. They were directed at him. How could he have made this happen? Should he resign? Where will this go? What are we getting into? And what about the hostages who are still inside? 200, more than 230 of them. So these are big questions that I think now are starting to be explored with slightly more sober minds.
Yeah, criticism certainly mounting. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel, thank you very much.
U.S. liberal media, MSNBC, kick out Netanyahu. Hope for the liberal mindset to take hold in government in Israel and have a ceasefire. That's where that's the position. Media tries to position your thinking, all right? To make this a long-lasting peace and to have the blessing to come down for all peoples of the world. The absolute destruction of Islamic terror needs to happen. And if it means scarring a whole generation, then so be it. Because the parents and the adults in Gaza could have prevented Hamas from digging in and running the show, but they didn't. So they're complicit. And it will take another generation that's not scarred from this to be able to reap the benefits of the blessing. You might as well just write off the ones that are in Gaza now. Because there's going to be this kind of hate, that this ingrained hate. And of course, there's going to be an ingrained hate on the Israeli side too. It's almost like our generation, the ones that are conducting the war and the ones that are alive today, won't see the promised land, because we are of the warring generation. We are of the generation that is not good enough to be able to see the Messianic era. We are the ones that are helping it along, moving it towards the Messianic era, but we're not going to see it. We're not good enough. We're not good enough people, no matter how much of a tzaddik you are, no matter how holy you may be. The people of the world, everyone that's been born today, isn't worth. It does not deserve the blessing of the Messianic era. But what we're doing is setting the stage for it. You know, but that's my take on it. You know, of course, it's a very strict interpretation of certain things, and people are going to disagree because it's easy to say, just stop the war. But it's not easy to actually really, truly stop war. Just because you're stopping the war, you're not stopping war. You're actually kicking the can down the road and making it worse as capabilities start to increase and unconventional means become more prevalent. Deal with the problem now before it metastasizes. That's who we are. All right, so thank you for watching this crazy episode, and please subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 channels on YouTube. The links are in the description of this video. Please subscribe to my Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble channels. The links are in the description of this video. Also, please, if you're an international watcher and can't buy from my store, or you're a domestic watcher and would like to, please help support my news coverage by donating. You can donate on my website. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description. Down at the bottom of the homepage, you can click either Stripe or PayPal, and you can donate through those mechanisms, or you can donate through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description of this video. You can also support my work by subscribing to my Patreon account, and for a nominal fee, you will be able to help support my news coverage that way. This is a great way if you're an international viewer, and I have a lot of international viewers, to be able to support my work because you won't be able to buy my health products. For the ones that are domestic that would like to purchase the products on my store, please go to the-studio-reykjavik.com, and the link is in the description of this video. Click it, and I have a lot of different products. I have structural nanosilvers. I have C60, which is a strong antioxidant. I have a plethora of supplements, and I have all natural deodorants, and curated these anti-aging boxes that you can purchase with one click, and that will allow you to be able to get a whole package at a little bit of a discount price for the anti-aging, or you can buy them individually if you want. One of the products that you can get on my store is the structural nanosilver soaps. I have, I think, 5 cents here. It's a great product. Structural nanosilver will neutralize pathogens. So this is a great product. It's high quality. All my products are high quality. So please go to the store and get some of the structural nanosilver soaps that I offer. I also offer supplements. And one of the supplements that you should be taking on a regular basis is lignans. This is a powder, and this will help with your immune system, and it'll help with hormonal health for males and females. For example, it can help with prostate health, and it can help with ovarian and uterine health. In addition, this can help mitigate some of the effects of postmenopausal symptoms like hot flashes. All right. I take this every day with hummus and a probiotic, because the probiotic that I take that's on my store is also a powdered form. And that's, I didn't bring it here. So I have a probiotic that's in capsule form, and I also have one in powdered form. I eat hummus every day, homemade hummus every day. So I just take, there's a little scooper in here. So you just, full scooper, just put it into your smoothie or into your hummus or into water. I also take the scooper from the probiotic and mix it, right? And just take it that way. So that this is a great way to improve your immune system and improve your hormonal health. This is important because as we get older, our hormonal levels will change, and the effects of those hormones will change. There is also evidence to suggest that this can help with preventing cancer. All right. So the idea here is that our bodies change over time, and that you want to try to slow down that change, and that those changes that are happening, you are kind of like filling the gap. Sometimes things are upregulated, some things are downregulated when you get older. So you're trying to slow down that process, especially the strong antioxidants, to kind of reduce that necrosis of cells and reduce the lower metabolic functions of the body, of the cell, right? For example, multivitamin. Vitamins and minerals are cofactors for enzymes to be able to allow for the proper metabolic pathways to take place. So take this multivitamin that I have on my store. It's a great multivitamin. It's easier to digest, and add this to that anti-aging protocol. By doing that, you're going to have the cofactors that you need for the proper enzymatic activity. I also have structural nanosilver lozenges. I have it in green apple and sweet menthol. We're in the cold season, so take these. These are a great product, right? Again, all my products are high quality, so take this, especially for the cold season, and get like 2 or 3 bags of these. I have the best toothpaste that you can purchase, way better than Alex Jones. So instead of supporting Alex Jones, start buying my toothpaste. It's a structural nanosilver toothpaste. It whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, neutralizes pathogens, reduces gum inflammation. And by doing that on a regular basis, you're going to reduce cardiovascular disease and valvular disease on your heart. All right. It's not the only way that cardiovascular disease happens or valvular disease happens, but it is a way. And so the best way to mitigate that is to take this toothpaste. It is a It is the best toothpaste that you can purchase. So to help support my work, go to the store and purchase this product and the other products that I've been mentioning. I have a ton of products to improve your health. And not only that, not only do I have products that improve your health, I'm telling you on how to combine them to actually slow down your aging process and improve your immune system. If you want to be a crazy liberal, don't go to my store. But if you don't want to be a crazy liberal, then you should go to my store and start following my protocol. Silver gel. This product is a can be used as a skincare product, right? And a product to help neutralize pathogens. So if you're using it to help neutralize pathogens, the best way to do this is to put it on your hands, put it around your mouth, around your nose, lightly coat the nostrils, around your ears, and lightly coat the inner canal, and lightly coat your over your eyes. All right, it'll stay active for about 5 hours. This can also be used as a skincare. So you can put it on your skin, leave it there overnight, and you'll notice that your skin is clearer. And not only that, on your face, it'll actually help to tighten the skin. So when you couple that with vitamin C and drink 64 ounces of filtered water to get rid of the fluoride, right? Because you don't want to drink fluoride at all. What will happen is it'll be cross-linking and the dermal layer will get improved. So you put this on your skin at night, right? You can put it just on your face or just, or a problem area or all over your body. You do that every night. You take the vitamin C that's on my store, you take the collagen and you drink the water, and you're going to be improving the lower layer of your skin. All right. Then you take the C60, which is a strong antioxidant that you can get in coconut or avocado on my store, and you take the resveratrol, and what will happen is the C60 will neutralize those reactive oxygen species and make the basal layer healthier and prevent the necrosis. And the cells that went into senesced cells, they can be eliminated by using the resveratrol, and the resveratrol is also a great antioxidant and been known to be a product that helps slow down aging. So I just told you a great way to neutralize pathogens and to improve your skin. Did Alex Jones tell you that? Alex Jones doesn't have the background that I have. Turmeric. This is a great product. What as part of the protocol, this anti-aging protocol, this is an antioxidant, but also it brings down inflammation. And there is a strong correlation between high inflammatory phases in your body and increased stress and increased aging. So if you bring down that inflammation, then you're going to age slower. So the 3 pillars to the protocol is neutralize pathogens so you're not fighting them, bring down the reactive oxygen species with very strong antioxidants like C60, and take things that will bring down the inflammation like turmeric. Ashwagandha is also a great way to control your blood glucose levels. And when you do that, you're reducing the inflammation. So this works well with the turmeric. Vitamin C, like I said, take the vitamin C, and this will help with improving your skin health, especially when you use this with the silver gel, the collagen, the C60, and the resveratrol. And drink 64 ounces of water throughout the day. To neutralize pathogens, what I do is I take a teaspoon of Max 35. This is a 35 ppm of structural nanosilver. It's in a liquid form. I take a teaspoon of it a day. I swish it in my mouth for about 20 or 30 seconds and then gargle it for about 20 or 30 seconds and then swallow it. What that's doing is it's neutralizing the pathogens in your oral cavity and then down your esophagus and improving the health of the mucosal layer and the barrier that is preventing pathogens from hitting the cells behind the barrier. Within that mucosal barrier is IgA, right? Immunoglobulin A. And when you have a healthy barrier, you're not going to get as sick as much. So when you're neutralizing pathogens with the gel around your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, right, around your ears, and swishing with the liquid, that's a big way to reduce the chances of getting a pathogen. Clarity factor, all right? This removes that brain fog, right? This product is better than Brain Force, right? So just like I said, you know, people go and support Alex Jones, right? But he doesn't have a good enough product in terms of toothpaste, nor a NeuroStack, right? So instead of supporting Alex Jones, support DrPaulCottrell. So take Clarity Factor. This will reduce the brain fog. It's way better than Brain Force. I take it twice a day. I take it in the morning and I take it in the mid-afternoon, all right? And that allows you to focus on your tasks if you're in school or if you're working, especially if you have a demanding job. It'll reduce the brain fog and keep those dendritic connections, because what you want is those neurons firing. And when you're taking the C60, which is a strong antioxidant, it's going to improve on the ATP production from the mitochondria. And you need that ATP mitochondria to help to fire off those neurotransmitters, because those neurotransmitters need ATP and they need, in many cases, they also need the calcium. So to allow for the firing of the neurotransmitters. And when you have neurotransmitters firing, then your dendrites will stay connected and they'll actually improve, especially when you're exercising. You know, the protocol is taking proper supplementation by neutralizing pathogens, taking strong antioxidants, and reducing inflammation, and adding other things to it, like B complex and skin health and proper filtered water and all this, right? But it's also proper diet, proper exercise, proper brain activity, right? Challenging your brain, reading, writing, talking to people in the real world, especially on subjects that you're not familiar with. Learn, right? And then also get proper sleep. I have a good night formula on the store made out of tryptophan and melatonin, and that will get you into that 3 cycles of REM sleep, right? A lot of people, they're having a difficulty sleeping. So you need proper sleep and get those REM cycles, because that's where the consolidation of memory happens. That's when you start filtering out the garbage that's been produced in the cells. You know, your body literally is healing itself and getting rid of toxic debris during your sleeping, and especially filtering the CSF. Right, so you have proteins that are starting to be kind of built up in your neurons, right, and they get filtered. This debris starts to go in the CSF, and then while you're sleeping, there's this filtration of it, and it goes through the lymphatic system and you flush it out. People that don't sleep very well will have a buildup of this entanglement of these proteins, right? So proper sleep, proper exercise, proper supplementation, proper diet. It's really important. D3. So an important feature to add to the anti-aging protocol, because this helps with gene expression. It also helps to get rid of cells that need to go through apoptosis. This is part of the reason why, if you are infected with the pathogen and the cell needs to die, this helps it. Oh, here's the probiotic that I was mentioning. This is the powdered probiotic that I add to my hummus, and I mix that with the lignans, right? And they're both powders. They have a scooper in each one, and it's easy to put it in water and mix it, or again, I put it in hummus. You can put it in a smoothie, but take it, and you need that proper gut biome to help with digestion and to help with being the metabolism and the metabolic communication between your gut and your liver is really important, but you're also the communication between your gut and your brain. And if you have an improper gut biome, you can get sick. And you also aren't absorbing nutrients properly. So proper gut biome is really important. So take a probiotic every day. I have two different types. I have the powdered one and I have the capsule product by Amio. So please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the health supplements that you need to improve your health. And take my advice: proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation, proper sleep, proper brain challenging, and you're going to fare way better than most people out there. And it's about preventative medicine, so you don't have to be on statins and blood thinners and big alpha blockers and beta blockers and antidepressants and all this stuff. You don't want to go down that road. Preventative medicine for most people is the best path forward to prevent high costs with healthcare for you as you get older. Take my advice. You invest in your body now, or you're going to be paying later. It's up to you. You want to front load this problem, or you're going to rear load it. Either way, you're going to pay, right? So you might as well have a better life, have a more vibrant life, and improve your body by investing in yourself, by taking the proper supplementation. Neutralize pathogens with structural nanosilver, reduce inflammation, turmeric and ashwagandha, bring down the reactive oxygen species by taking the C60. I have it in avocado and coconut oil in 2 ounce, 4 ounce, and 8 ounce. All right. That will take you a long way, but you add stuff to it to improve the protocol by taking the B complex. Those are cofactors for the electron transport chain in the TCA cycle, and helping prevent macrocytic anemia. You can add in the good night formula, so you can get the REM cycles. You can add in the digestive enzymes to help reduce the load on your pancreas, so you can break down carbohydrates, lipids, right, and proteins. Taking the vitamin C's and the zincs and the magnesiums and the D3s, those are important to add to the protocol. The other products that I have are like the resveratrol, great antioxidant. It's synergistic with C60, and it helps to get rid of senescent cells. So these are all things that will work together to be able to improve your health. If you followed some of the advice that I had on other videos, how to reduce cardiovascular disease by reducing plaque. Take D3, take K2, MK7. I don't sell K2, MK7, but take that. Take the ashwagandha, take the turmeric and the C60, and you're going to start to see an improvement on your cardiovascular health, right? Because what it's going to do is it's going to reduce the chances of additional plaque, and over time, it'll slowly bring the plaque down. It won't completely eliminate it. Cardiovascular disease in the United States and in most Western countries starts when you're about 15 years old. When you get the yellow streak that's in your intima, on your intima for your vascular system, the blood vessels, all right? 15 years old. It won't manifest into high blood pressure. It won't manifest into, problematic pieces breaking off and causing strokes until about 15 years later. So when you're about 30 or 35, you start seeing it. But it happens at age 15. The earlier you start this protocol, the better you are. If you actually started this protocol before you're 15, you're reducing the chances of the yellow streaks taking place at age 15, and you're probably moving the yellow streaks to around 20. And the compound effect of that means that you won't have the cardiovascular disease like a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old. You're going to have better blood flow. And when you have better blood flow, you have reduced neurological problems from the perspective of blood flow. There's other things that can be a part of neurological problems, but I'm just talking about cardiovascular disease and from this perspective. Follow my protocol. I'm telling you, the knowledge that I am telling you is worth lots and lots of extra years and more vibrant years. And it'll save you money in the long run, because if you start getting plugged into the world of you have to take diabetes medication and you have to be taking statins and you got to be taking beta blockers and all this stuff, it's going to get expensive. There's going to be side effects, and it's going to be a downward spiral. Millions of Americans fall in this category. And the answer is proper supplementation, proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep, proper brain challenging. And you will improve your health radically. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to all the channels that I have, all 3 YouTube channels and the Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble channel. Make sure that you get the notification, you click the notification button. It's really important that you subscribe to all the 6 channels because of the censorship. Thank you for listening. All the links are in the description of this video and all my videos. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the supplements that I offer, and stop supporting Alex Jones, because Dr. Paul Cottrell is better. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.